Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. In today's First Impressions video, we are taking a look at the Ruger Mark IV Tactical. Before we get this video started, I wanted to share with you a quick word from this video's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by TacPack. If you are looking to surprise yourself every single month with a box of items, then TacPack is for you. You can check out their website. There's a few different tiers. I really like TacPack because it gives you a way to kind of see some new products that you may not have thought about purchasing before. And also, if you use the code FAF at checkout, it not only helps out the channel by letting TacPack know that you're subscribing to TacPack thanks to this video, but it also gives you a free extra tactical gift that will ship separately from your first box. Guys, I am very excited to get this Ruger Mark IV on the channel for this First Impressions video. This was one that really kind of surprised me. I didn't know that I was going to be purchasing this Mark IV. It just kind of jumped out to me in the case at the gun shop that I work at. I've always had a love for the Ruger Mark series of pistols, and I just always wanted to get my hands on one. Surprisingly, I have never had one in my own personal collection. I've always shot them every now and again, and I was always a little bit turned off, just like everyone else, with the Mark III series of pistols because of the takedown. Now, of course, with training, with practice, you can get pretty good at it. However, once the Mark IV series started to come out, I started to get even more interested because of the easy takedown process. And then I saw the Mark IV Tactical for the first time when Ruger released it a few years ago. These have quickly become very, very hard to find. However, it was a little bit of a rocky road to get to this First Impressions video. I brought it out for what I thought was going to be the First Impressions video, and you guys are going to be seeing a lot of back roll footage of this range day. It was a random, horribly cold day here in Pennsylvania in mid-March, and we had about 18-degree weather minus wind chill. It was the same day we filmed the 1187 video, and for whatever reason, I was having a ton of issues, not with the gun itself, but the magazines on this Mark IV. Now, unfortunately, I only had the 2 magazines that come standard with this Mark IV from the factory, and these problems really were only presenting themselves when I loaded the magazine to full capacity, which in this case is 10 rounds. So I would load it to 10 rounds, and the first 2 rounds in the magazine completely lost all spring tension. They were just kind of flopping around at the top of the mag. Of course, I knew it was going to be a problem, and no matter what I tried to do, whether it was holding it upside down and slamming the spring forward or just trying to bounce the spring back and forth, no matter what I did, those top 2 rounds were giving me a bunch of problems. And sure enough, I would put the magazine into the gun, go to chamber a round, and it would either not pick up the first round or it would pick it up, fire the first round, and then the second round in the magazine was left just kind of dangling there. I had to really hit the mag up in order to get that to fly forward. Now, when I loaded 8 or even 7 or 6 rounds in the magazine, it worked flawlessly. There was no problem. So the only thing that was coming to mind is maybe since the spring is open here and it was such a cold range day that there was some leftover packing grease or something in the magazine, and that caused it to just stick a little bit. So I thought that was the problem. Brought it home, cleaned up the magazines, and I brought it back to the most recent range day this past weekend. And with this pistol at the range, all of a sudden, with the same CCI lead round nose ammunition that I was shooting before in the very cold range day, I started to have the same problem. Loaded it to 10 rounds. First 2 started giving me problems. I had to tap the magazine to get it into place properly as far as the rounds shooting back up. And then finally, I started to realize that the problem may have not been the magazine, but the ammunition. I can't tell you guys how many times more recently that I have gotten CCI ammunition, and normally that's kind of the gold standard for .22 long rifle, and it has just not been working for me as far as the QC. Ammunition just was a little bit more waxed than usual. The lead round nose was just kind of a little bit clumped up, and what I believe was happening is that lead round nose was just kind of smearing up the front portion of the magazine and actually causing it to lose spring tension because there was some friction going on with the nose of the bullet and the magazine. Once I tried some Aguila Super Extra copper-plated round nose and also some Federal Bulk Pack copper-plated round nose hollow points in the gun, and it worked flawlessly. I was able to load it to 10 rounds, no problem. There were a few hiccups in the first few times that I tried to load it fully with the Aguila ammunition, but that was immediately after the lead round nose, and I think there was just some leftover crap that had to work its way out of the magazine. As far as this Mark IV in particular, what makes the tactical so interesting to me is that it has an alloy frame with a very traditional Ruger Mark Series pistol grip, which I just absolutely love the aesthetic of this grip, and then also just how comfortable the grip is for me. I really like that grip angle, and we have these really nice black plastic grips with the red Ruger emblem in them. It just checks off that cool factor box, and I love the fact that this is a bull barrel and threaded option, because a little bit of a spoiler alert, the reason why I wanted the tactical so much with the rail set, which we'll talk about in a bit here, is to make it into a very quiet little night vision plinker with a Streamlight VIR2 on the bottom, which you guys will see in a later upgrades video. A full bull barrel threaded upper portion on the receiver, and then it also has this rail set. So you have a pick rail up at the top, which is typical for a lot of the 2245 series of Ruger pistols, and it also has a rail set on the bottom of the barrel, and this is not typical. This allows you to turn this Ruger Mark IV into a very, very handy, in my opinion, quiet, if you have a suppressor, 22 pistol. And these are things that also can be removed. So if you are looking to have just more of a traditional classic looking Ruger Mark IV, but you wanted to have that threaded barrel and the option for the rails, you can just simply unscrew the rails, and now you have a very plain Jane Ruger Mark IV. You have standard blacked out target sights. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of those, but they do work very well for a 22 target pistol like this. If you are looking to shoot targets and paper targets with it, that is great, but if you're looking for a more fun, more practical night vision build, that definitely doesn't work out too well. So I went ahead and threw on my Vortex Viper. This is a little bit of an older pistol red dot, but for a 22, it works perfectly. And more surprisingly, under night vision, this, although it's not advertised to work, works really well. The Mark IV is going to feature an ambidextrous safety, so you have the safety on the one side there, and of course it's on the other side. Now, Ruger is very smart to include in the box a safety delete for the left or right hand side of the gun. So it's just a little spacer that goes in here. You can see there's a small screw holding that in place. You can take that out, put in the spacer, and you are going to completely get rid of the ambidextrous feature of the safety. For me, I actually didn't mind the ambidextrous feature, especially if I was switching hands. It was just kind of nice to have. The one thing I will say though is that if you are not going to switch it out and you have a firm grip on the pistol and go to remove the safety, you'll notice that it actually starts kind of digging into the opposite side. So it's something to be aware of. It definitely tripped me up a few times at the range. What I started to do is, as I was going to present the pistol and my hand was still kind of out of the way, I would flick the safety off and then get a full grip, and I did not have a problem. But if you're trying to flip it on and off while you have a full grip, it is definitely going to get in the way unless you put on that safety delete. One of the things I really love about this Mark IV, and really any of the Mark IVs or Mark Ruger pistols, is how quickly the mags fly out of the magazine. Well, they are gone. So trying to do reloads with this gun, which I find pretty fun. I know it might look a little silly running and gunning with a 22 pistol like this at the range. I really find that fun and enjoyable, and while I was trying to do some reloads with speed, it was really easy to get that mag out and get the fresh one in. As far as the trigger in this gun, I know this is something that a lot of people switch out just right out of the gate. The pistol also has a magazine disconnect, which I just absolutely can't stand. So there's a lot of Volquartsen kits that are out there that will allow you to get rid of the magazine disconnect. I have a few buddies at the gun shop that frequently come in. Tom, shout out to you if you're watching this, buddy. Thanks for the advice always on the 22 pistols, that tell me all about the different triggers and upgrades that they do to the Mark IV, and that is because there are a ton of options out there. But the factory trigger is really not terrible. You have a little itty bitty bit of take up, and then your brake, which is very crisp. You have the reset there, which is pretty tactile, brings you out to that wall again, and then another nice clean brake. Trigger wasn't bad at all. As it sits, the pistol was super accurate at the range, just standing there plinking around on a paper target. It was without a doubt more accurate than I was. And even though I had those magazine / ammunition problems in the beginning, the gun itself functioned flawlessly. There was no problems with the gun, no ejection problems, anything like that. As long as the magazine was feeding the rounds into this gun, it was firing every single time and really was working well, which was awesome to see. I was really hoping, because I've always heard great things about these pistols, that it would work reliably, and of course it did. During the range, I was running it with my Silencer Co. Sparrow suppressor, and it was a very, very quiet setup, which was awesome. Of course, pretty much any 22 long rifle pistol is going to be awesome to run suppressed. You guys know I did a video a while back on a Walther PPQ that is 22 long rifle. Awesome gun to run suppressed, and it was the same thing here. Because of this barrel length, any ammunition that you put through it, supersonic or subsonic, is going to be subsonic, which is really nice because subsonic 22 ammunition nowadays is getting a lot harder to come by. So being able to put through any standard 22 long rifle through this, and it is going to be subsonic and be very, very quiet, is awesome. Now, of course, if you are looking for some crazy clandestine quietness, you can simply hold the bolt back here and actually stop the action from reciprocating. Because it's a 22, you're really not going to blow your thumb apart there as the bolt is coming to the rear with a lot of force, and you are going to have an even more quiet setup, which is really nice. And I think in today's world, even using them as kind of that SHTF quiet gun is definitely a role that these pistols can fit into, especially with the reliability that they have. Now, of course, the rails will add a little bit of weight, especially when you have an optic and you have a light on the bottom. So just be ready for that. It is a little bit of a heavier 22 pistol. For me, I actually don't really mind that at all. It is not the end of the world, but it is something to be aware of. That is pretty much going to wrap up this first impressions video on the Ruger Mark IV. Right after this video, I'm gonna throw a few more upgrades on this and get it back to the range for a lot more testing and a lot more night vision shooting. So stay tuned for that. It is going to be a lot of fun. If you guys have any other questions about this gun or anything else on the channel, please throw them down below in the comment section, and you guys know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, check out the links in the description to help support the channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.